should be. And we're live. Today, on the Shrew Dudes podcast, we are going to talk about a few different things. And this week in satire, we are going to address how Biden didn't know that the classified documents were in his garage, or where he was, or what the White House was, or what the president was, or really anything at all.
Or if he pooped his pants.
Yes. Where's the Pope? In the rant of the week.
It's a funny joke in Spanish, like, where's the papa? Because in Spanish it's papa, but it also sounds like potato. So, like, my sister and brother always said, like, where's the potato? Anyways, go on.
Yep. In the rant of the week, we're going to talk about how the Democrats and the House of Representatives are unwilling to condemn killing an infant born alive or even violent domestic terrorism against pro-life pregnancy centers.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's a trap. We are going to talk about how when the left and the radical pro-LGBTQ mob tries to make us conform, it just leads us down a really dark path.
Very dark.
And then finally, the douche of the week, Washington Governor Jay Inslee, who continues to refuse to rehire unvaccinated workers.
Ugh. Boo.
All of that and more on the Shrew Dudes podcast. Alrighty, so we are back for another live stream. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Yeah. Anything interesting happened to you, Danny, the past couple days?
Oh, last couple days? I mean, not really. I got accused of being super greedy. That was always fun.
Super greedy?
By a coworker. I was like, what? How am I super greedy?
How are you super greedy now this
apparently
time?
Me trying to organize the schedule means I'm trying to, get all the sweet jobs for myself. You know how it is. Anyways, just one of the fun things of the work life. How about you?
Work has been pretty normal, like aside from getting up at 5 a.m. That sucks. But I've been having some very silly conversations on Twitter. For those watching on the streams, I'm guessing anybody watching the streams could tell me in about 2 seconds what is true and Anana Shabbat pressure. Because that was something that I posted about this whole Biden confidential classified information scandal, just to poke fun at this guy for being a Biden supporter. And he's like, what is this? Like some sort of racist dog whistle to try and signal to your like far right GOP friends to harass me? And I'm like, no, it's literally a word that Biden made up because Biden is a numbskull.
If anything, it's a leftist dog whistle.
Oh, a leftist dog whistle. The made up words.
Summoning all the Biden supporters. Yeah. True, I'm not stopping the pressure.
Summoning Demathulu.
Yes, right. Actually, if there is one for like the right wing, it would be like let's go Brandon. That would actually be a legitimate one.
That would be,
but
nobody's not doing that. So
not gonna happen, bro.
Not doing it. Hasn't happened yet. Maybe one day. One day we'll have the let's go Brandon. But no.
But it's funny, like when you argue online. If there's anything that's really gonna convince you that the world is like going down the toilet, it's online conversations, because you really get to see the people that are unfortunately you don't get the creme de la creme online.
Not typically.
Not particularly. No. Yeah, you don't get the top notch.
You typically get the yeah, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And then of course all of them, they're just like, well, you're the idiots, and I'm like, but I'm the one who sourced my arguments.
Yeah, no,
and they're like,
no,
you sourced it, but you didn't understand it. And I'm like, I take a screenshot. And I'm like, what's this then? And then they're like, block. And I'm like,
Yeah, I also had this week I found a a web resource. It's like a website that the guy does like a ridiculously like well sourced and well laid out like argument of like basically a full rundown of the entire story behind masks and all of the stuff that happened. And I was like, thank goodness, I love this. Like I'm gonna take some time to go through it. But my friend was like, yeah, like most people are not gonna take the time. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Most people will not take the time to actually go through and learn the whole story about masks and read the studies and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes it's difficult to have those conversations because you're like you have no, you wish you could like literally mind meld and like somehow like transfer your information into their brains and they'll be like, oh my God, I never knew. Like, like that would be amazing. Fortunately, we can't do that. It takes time and effort.
Something
and I'm
that
tired.
Only some of us have.
A lot of coffee.
Oh, I have.
But yeah,
I was like considering today.
Okay.
Because we were at the break room, and we had our safety meeting, and then by the end of the safety meeting, I was done my second cup of coffee, and I was like, do I make a third before I go back out?
The answer is
I
always
should
yes.
not. I should not do that.
What? What's wrong with you?
I was making
Maybe you're getting
wise decisions.
Maybe you're making low quality coffee. That's the problem.
No, I make a mocha. Like that's one great thing about my new job is that they supply absolutely everything. And so I go in the morning and I get 2 packets of hot chocolate and I pour them in, and then I add my milk or cream, and then I add like 2/3 full with coffee, the rest with hot water, and I stir it and I'm good to go. And it's a wonderful tasting mocha. Nice.
I bet you it's nothing like my new fancy machine because man, I've been loving this thing. I actually told my roommate Henry, I'm like, try this before I even tasted it. I'm like, try this latte I just made. He's like, okay. So he takes a sip. He's like, hot dang, that's good coffee. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. So I'm very happy. I'm finally having like top notch coffee at home. So good, so good. I'm excited. But you know what else I'm excited about? Let's get going because today's gonna be good.
Today is going to be good. All right, so let's jump into the first stuff that we're going to cover for today. And that is some crazy videos. Hot dang.
Good old Freedom Tunes are they're solved to my like troubled soul.
Yeah. Now we would have loved to cover there was a segment from SNL quite a few years ago called Almost Pizza.
Yes.
And of course the tagline was that it was brought to you by Pfizer.
Yes.
But we could not put it on air on Twitch because Twitch is very, very sensitive about censorship and very sensitive about.
Can you just look it up on the web and just kind of show what it looks like?
Once we're done this video, then I will. Yeah, then I'll show it.
I highly recommend it. I would laugh my head off because it perfectly resembles like how Pfizer lies to you about what they actually like are providing you.
What was in the jibby jab? Yep.
Beautiful. Right. I would recommend it. Yeah.
But this is Freedom Tunes. Biden goes to the border.
Are pouring over the border at a rate of 1 billion per hour.
It's hard to even say it, it's so much.
Sounds like great news for 2024.
Ah, man.
No, don't you get it? We have mail-in ballots now. What's the point of immigrants?
Stack spaghetti sauce at a store and in a supermarket. You control the guy or the woman who brings out the carts on a forklift. What happened?
Leave this one to us, Joe.
They're becoming a liability. Earlier this year, DeSantis sent 12 of them to Martha's Vineyard. At this rate, by next year, there could be 14.
You're kidding me.
Not a joke.
It's not just Martha's Vineyard. What if other rich white neighborhoods end up having 12 immigrants sent to them?
You're right. We need to send a message that our nation's leaders are welcoming immigrants to experience all of the opportunities that can be had in a border state. It's coming along well.
Oh.
Yep, the border state wall to cut off Texas.
Nicely done.
That was a good one by Freedom Tunes. That was a really good one.
By the way, did you actually catch the whole what do you call it? The whole shenanigans when Biden actually went to the border this past week? Did you catch it at all, Steve?
A little bit, yeah.
So if anybody doesn't know, what happened last week is during the whole the whole fiasco with the House being voted in, like the hi Shelley. With the whole fiasco with the House being voted in and McCarthy and all that, what happened is the Biden White House actually, like, he actually went to the border. A lot of people are speculating he went there because he can then say he went to the border when the next election comes around. So it's like totally garbage. But they actually cleaned up the town that he went to. They went in, removed all the like the shanty towns and all the immigrants and all that kind of stuff. They basically did a North Korean style. Let's clear it all up, make it look nice for the cameras so that we can pretend there's no border crisis. And like Biden will stand in front, take pictures, and then go back. It's like, what the crap?
Yeah.
What the crap? They actually did that. It was crazy.
Oh, totally. It's pretty nutty. Pretty nutty.
Well, that's how they operate, right?
Oh yeah.
They're not operating in good faith. They're never operating in good faith. But yeah. So, anyways, let's go into the show us what we can't show today.
Yes. So this is Almost Pizza from SNL. We cannot show it to you because
you can show little screen grabs of like the throughout, but you can't actually play it. But I recommend go to YouTube, look up Almost Pizza.
There's a good screen grab.
Right there.
Almost Pizza.
Recommended. You will laugh your head out. The idea is that they're trying to make a play on kind of like things like this is. I think this might be before the COVID. It may be. I don't know if they actually could get away with this.
This was 9 years ago.
Yeah, so this is way before COVID, but it became
from
so
Pfizer.
relevant. From Pfizer at the end, they said this product is from Pfizer right there.
Yeah.
You got it?
There. Oh wait, no.
Right, almost from Pfizer.
There we go. From Pfizer.
There we go. From Pfizer.
So
So
good.
I recommend go on to the SNL. We can't play it because we're gonna get a copyright strike. SNL is brutal for that, but it's on YouTube. Go check it out.
Yep. So,
Highly
alrighty.
recommend.
Oh yes, for sure. But now on to This Week in Satire. Biden says he is unaware of any classified documents, or who he is, or why he's sitting in this oval-shaped office. Yes. After another trove of classified documents was found at Biden's residence, Biden defended himself by claiming he is unaware of any classified documents, or who he is, or why he's sitting in an oval-shaped office. Seriously, Jill, what's going on here? This is a joke!
Not a joke.
Cried an outraged Biden to a nearby potted plant that looked somewhat like Jill Biden. Why is everyone asking me about documents? What kind of an office has walls with no corners? Where is Barack? True and honest, shove under pressure.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't remember it as well as you do.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
Aides then began their morning ritual of briefing the president on the details of the scandal as well as the scheduled meetings for the day and who Joe Biden is. Sir, they found more documents locked in your garage, said one advisor. Are there any other documents we should know about? Sir? What is it you have in your hand, sir? Aides then tackled the president, pried a piece of paper marked "Talk Secret" out of his hands as he attempted to stuff the whole thing in his mouth. Publishing time, the scandal erupted again after Biden was seen blowing his nose into another classified document. Now, this, of course, like, the reason that they're saying, oh, like, he doesn't know, it's poking fun at two different things. It's poking fun, first off, that Biden doesn't really know where he is at almost any time of the day. And second, in that, wasn't Jen Psaki, but it was Karine Jean-Pierre, when asked about what, it's like, why did he have documents? Like, why have we now find two separate groupings of documents in his house? She's like, well, he didn't know they were there. It's like,
of course,
that's a really bad thing.
I mean, even Trump, he knew they were there, but that wasn't that. But even though he knew where they were in his locked place, that wasn't a good enough excuse for them not to raid him. But like Biden is like, I'm super responsible, like leaving them where anybody could grab them. But it's fine, no worries here. You're good because you got that special privilege, Democrat privilege, where you can pretty much like torch anything you want and no problems. Like it's crazy. Democrat privilege gets you just about anything you want. But yeah, it's the perfect example of complete double standards.
Oh, completely. But that did not stop some crazy leftists from trying to make up things about it. So,
launching into the rant of the week?
No, this isn't the rant of the week. That's later. Come on.
Oh,
keep up.
Oh,
Joy Behar suggests Republicans planted documents on Biden just as Dems were this close to getting Trump. The View co-host Joy Behar made the suggestion on Thursday that classified documents discovered at President Biden's home may have been planted by the Republicans as a means of distracting from helping Donald Trump. I've never seen a luckier person than Donald Trump, she declared, just as co-host Alyssa Farah-Griffin was arguing that Biden was building Trump's defense for him. Just as we're this close to getting by, somehow these documents appear, she said, insinuating they were planning...
If you're going to do that, can we just play the video?
Come on.
I mean,
No, I disagree with both of those. Yeah. But Joe Biden is building his defense for him. Like, I hate to say it, this is much harder
you know what I think? I've never seen a luckier person than Donald Trump. Just as we're this close to getting him.
But you know what?
Yes, you're in this close.
But here's the thing. Biden is wrong to have done this. He was in office
Well,
for
let's
40 years.
find out what this is first. Now, again, one of the things that gets me crazy is before we know, it's already been spun.
It's already been spun. Yes, that's exactly what happened to Trump, Whoopi. But what did you say for Whoopi? What did you say when it was to Trump? That we should immediately arrest him.
Oh, arrest him.
Throw him in prison, and charge him with treason, which is still a charge that comes with the death penalty.
Yep.
So, yep. You're totally objective there, Whoopi.
Put him on a post, whip him like 39 times. It's all good. It's all good. I love Joy Behar though. Joy Behar. She's like, just when we're this close from getting to Trump, like we're this close. I'm like, you've been this close for the last 6 years.
Yep.
Give it up, people.
Yeah,
give it up.
Russian story.
Oh my gosh.
But of course, thankfully, and even though this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is just going to be a sham investigation.
Of course.
So Biden's DOJ appoints special counsel to review Biden's handling of classified docs as VP. Yeah. So Merrick Garland appointed Robert Hur as a special counsel to reviewing his handling of the documents. A former U.S. attorney in Maryland who currently works in the private sector will return to government and begin working on the files in the coming days, a senior Justice Department official said. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it comes after there were 2 documents found in 2 different locations. And where is it? This is the conversation between Peter Doocy and Biden.
Oh, this is like always the classic. It's like
Peter Doocy's so great.
Classified material next to your Corvette. What were you thinking?
I'm going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage. Okay, so it's not like it's sitting out in the street. But at any rate.
So much better.
Yes, as well as my Corvette.
Yep.
So Trump's documents were in a locked room on his Mar-a-Lago, house, which is which has fencing and you can't just walk in there. But no, it's fine. It's in a garage, a locked garage.
Yep.
No problem. That's
no problem.
how you treat classified documents. Good job, Mr. President.
Yep. Good job, Mr. President.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Former Vice President.
Yes.
I keep forgetting I need to do that.
I know. We both forget.
He does not respect. He does not deserve to be called Mr. President. He is a hack. Hack, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Someone else that's a hack. Joy Reid.
Yeah.
GOP
Hey, hold on.
What?
How are you doing this? Because I'm confused.
Because this is not the rant of the week. The rant of the week ends at the end of this argument, or the end of this article. Okay. This is exactly what we discussed.
No, that's not what we discussed. You go ahead and do your thing. That's
admonish him.
No, I need to make sure we get this. He told me, I'm like, what's the rant of the week? I'm like, oh, with these 4 articles? Cool. Okay, sounds good. And all of a sudden he's changing it on me. So I'm like, wait, what? I'm trying to adjust on air. So just so you know, Steven's throwing me under the bus here.
Throwing you under the bus.
That's right.
Being totally reasonable because the articles have nothing to do with each other.
Since when do we put articles after the satire? We don't do that.
Lots.
We go the rant right after. No, we've never done that.
There's plenty of times we've done addendums.
Anyways,
Conquer Worm will set you right. He knows.
Never.
He knows.
No, he'll throw you under the bus too. Anyways, go on.
So GOP Rep Byron Donalds refuses to back down when MSNBC's Joy Reid questions his ability to lead. So let's just watch the clip because it's really quite entertaining.
Oh, it is.
You were nominated for Speaker.
Yeah, I can't.
You've been in Congress 1 term. Yes.
What were your qualifications to be Speaker of the House?
Well, look, I think my colleagues, they recognize my leadership, and they've seen it in many leaps and bounds,
Can you
even
give specifics?
in one term. Secondarily, I've served before at the state level, now here at the federal level.
What were your
Third,
specific qualifications to be Speaker?
I actually understand budgets. I understand what the long-term ramifications
What
are
are
for our
what is the
country.
job of the Speaker? Hold on a second. We have to have a conversation.
I'm trying.
What is hold on? What is the job of Speaker? Can you explain what the job of Speaker is? Because the job of Speaker doesn't have to do every single member of Congress has served in. Okay, what is the job?
The job of the Speaker of the House, number one, is to actually make sure that the Congress is operating on time. It largely sets the agenda for the conference. I mean, for the entire House of Representatives. It actually engages in negotiations with the Senate and the White House on major issues, key issues. The Speaker of the House has security clearances that most members do not have. You're number three, obviously, in line to the presidency, and there's much, much more. The job is critical. Oh, and by the way, the Speaker of the House is also responsible for security at the
fundraising, right?
Course.
And so,
like she has to throw that in.
And you're saying that you would be prepared after one term to do the job that Speaker Pelosi and others who were in leadership. You ran for leadership, and you lost that leadership race to the congresswoman, a congresswoman who ended up being in leadership, right? So you were not elected to leadership, but you believe that though you've never served in leadership ever, and you've only served one term, that you believe you were qualified because you got into it back and forth with a fellow congresswoman who was critical of the nomination because it definitely looked like they were looking for a response to Hakeem Jeffries in you.
No, that was not anything.
Because you've literally been there for one term. So you've never been in leadership. I'm asking you the question.
I'm answering.
That's what,
Am I allowed to
and the
answer?
reason I'm asking that, I'm just going to ask you this question, is one of the things that,
I
don't know that you said it, but members have said is that they wanted to highlight the diversity of the conference. There are 4 African-American members in the House caucus, the Republican caucus. There are 56 members in the Democratic caucus. So it's more diverse. There are more African-American members just that are House committee ranking members. They're at the same number that are actually members of the entire Republican House caucus. Right. So do you not believe that the idea was to make a diversity statement by nominating you?
Well, actually, first, that was not the idea because I was in the room when the decision was made by people who chose to nominate me. That never.
And of course, like talking about diversity,
goes on, of course,
yeah, talking like it's like, well, the Democrat caucus is more diverse. It's like, but diversity of color is irrelevant.
Not only, but there's a reason why the Democrats are more diverse because they are the bigger guilty of token diversity hires. Like the president hired 2 people entirely because of their skin color.
Yep,
that was Kamala Harris and that Supreme Court judge. That I don't even, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Yeah, I mean, those are so obviously because he even said, "Oh, by the way, the next justice I choose will be a black woman." I was like, "Well, there you go, diversity hire." Like seriously, my favorite thing is like when Joy Reid was saying like we need to have a conversation over here, and I'm like, you're cutting him off every freaking time. It's the perfect example of like a shark doing an interview. It's like she's literally sitting there with a little talking point. She's just trying to cut. She's literally trying to put him into a trap every time. It's brutal. They're trying this is like how the leftist media does it. They try to portray all Republicans as the worst version of as the worst possible people in Congress when the Democrats are 10 billion times worse. They're 10 billion times worse. But here's how a respectable Republican congressman is treated and is portrayed as he's trying to be portrayed as a bad guy by a total hack. Like Joy Reid is a hack, but then you turn around and you see what Democrats actually do when they're actually given the chance to show some sort of moral fiber, and they don't.
And this is what the actual rants of the week is all about. All right, so abortion survivor calls Democrat collective opposition to Born Alive bill traumatizing and disgusting. Watching Democrats oppose bill to protect babies who survive abortion was indescribable, abortion survivor says. So, It's almost indescribable for me to say what it's like to see the people who are opposition of truly who I am and what I have suffered, the population I serve, and they're still suffering today, says Melissa Oden, the founder of Abortion Survivors Network, an advocacy organization that offers support to people who survive abortions. She survived a saline abortion in 1977. The birth mother's family pressured her into undergoing the procedure. So yeah, let's just watch this because it's tough.
It's harrowing.
And that's just a picture of it. This is the video.
That's the video?
This is the video.
You get full screen?
Yeah, in a second. What the heck? Why does it keep doing that? Stop it.
I'm Melissa Oden. I'm the founder and CEO of the Abortion Survivors Network. We are a healing and advocacy organization that serves abortion survivors, so the babies who survive failed abortions. We serve survivors around the world and their families, including their moms who are impacted after an abortion fails. And of course, I have my own backstory that led me to creating this organization. I myself am an abortion survivor. In 1977, I survived a saline infusion abortion that was forced upon my birth mother by her family. I soaked in a toxic salt solution for 5 days, being poisoned and scalded to what was intended to be my death. And on the 5th day of the abortion procedure, I was accidentally born alive. You know, sadly, there were demands made to leave me to die at St. Luke's Hospital in Sioux City, Iowa, by my own grandmother, who was a nurse at that facility. And gratefully, after a few minutes, I know that I was ultimately rushed off to the NICU by a brave nurse who was willing to do the right thing for me. And for me, that's what the Born Alive vote is all about, is ensuring that babies like me are provided medical care. My life, no survivor's life should ever be left in the hands of whoever is.
Yeah. So she goes on, and it is a good thing to watch. So despite demands, so the bill also clarifies that a survivor is a legal person for all purposes under the law of the United States. Additionally, it states the baby born in an abortion clinic does not have adequate care. Facilities will be responsible for transporting that child to a hospital. No survivor's life should ever be left in the hands of whoever happens to be working that day. Knowing that it was blocked over 80 times when we had Speaker Pelosi, obviously yesterday was very historic. All but 2 Democrats voted against the legislation, which of course passed 220 to 210. Senior Democratic lawmakers tweeted criticism, calling Republicans' position extreme.
Of course. The extreme position is the children born alive should not be murdered. That's the extreme position.
Yeah,
Makes you wonder, if that's the extreme position, what's their position?
Yeah. So Kamala Harris says House Republicans passed an extreme bill today that will further jeopardize the right to reproductive health care in our country. This is yet another attempt by the Republican legislatures to control women's bodies.
At that point, the child is outside of the body. How are you trying to control a woman's body at that point?
So, most survivors find it traumatizing and disgusting that we are reduced to being a partisan issue, she said. That's not who we are, and that's not what we're trying to make us out to be. So, unfortunately, it sends it to the Senate through the upper chamber, which is unfortunately controlled by Democrats. So we'll have a lot of abortion survivors reaching out to senators. We're constituents of our senators, and we deserve for them to hear our stories and how their vote impacts us. So, of course, it's horrifying that the Democrats, all but 2 of them, would vote against protections for survivors of botched abortions.
Yeah.
Like people who are born alive, who are struggling to breathe, especially tiny little infants. And you're like, nope, we can't. Like, yeah, I think it was Nader. Ralph Nader?
Ralph Nader, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, well, like, it puts the child and the mother at extra risk if we have to transport this child to the hospital. It's like,
only the child.
What? No, it doesn't. It doesn't put anybody at extra risk.
No, those are the 2 justifications that the Democrats came up with. The first one, like you said, Ralph Nader, because the Democrats, I love how, like, somebody today put, like, the Democrats are basically the Borg. Like, they all think alike, they all vote in lockstep. There's no diversity within the Democrat Party, but they have to take the moral high ground. They have to claim that we're we're the morally like virtuous ones. So they can't actually say that they support like something horrible like this. So they came up with two excuses. One, what the one Ralph Nader said, basically said like, well, if the child is forced to be driven to a hospital, maybe he'll die there. So we should just not do it. I'm like, no, you can actually create an addition to that idea and actually say like, well, he must be provided with health care and like life-saving health care no matter where he is, right? But if it's in an abortion facility, we know how they like to like basically like throw kids into like closets or like flush them down the toilet or drown them. Like the healthcare facility. Sorry, the worst thing I could say. The Planned Parenthoods and all those facilities, they have a vested interest in making sure these children don't survive. So no, you cannot allow them to hold them. The second excuse that they come up with is, you remember what the second one was, Stephen? No, it was that this isn't happening. So this is a totally unnecessary bill. They do that all the time. It's like, well, this barely happens. We don't even know if this happens at all. Like that's what they say. And here's to what I say to that. And maybe you guys can give a better like counter argument. My argument is, let's imagine that somebody in Congress and the Republican Party wants to pass a bill that makes it a criminal offense to for lizard people to go around like murdering like people. It's like, well, that's not happening. Well, if it's not happening, why vote against it? I mean, is there a downside? If there's not happening, what's the downside? But like, no, I want lizard people to like go around and murdering people. Like, it's you can't actually make that argument. If it's not happening, then there's no reason to vote against it. Why would you vote against it? It's a non-argument, and it's not that hard to point out how stupid that is. There's like well, I'm against like people eating like other like human beings eating other human beings on the street. It's like, oh, that's not happening. Okay, well, why would it be bad to vote against that?
Yeah. Why would you oppose a bill like this?
Why would you oppose a bill like
even if it's not happening? It's just like, well, just in case,
just vote against it anyways. It's an excuse. So
yeah, it is.
It gets pretty bad out there. Like the Democrats are the party of evil, and this is one of those places where you can really make that case, because only people who are evil would support the murder of children, and particularly when every abortion argument goes out the window. Because every abortion argument is contingent on that child being inside the mother. That's every abortion argument. The second they leave the mother's like wombs and they're outside in the real world, every abortion argument's gone. At that point, they really expose that they're murderers. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Well, this is an interesting point from Conquerworm. So Dems, Republican, Libs, NDP, Conservatives this day and age. Is there really much different? You have to find the fringe members that are considered extreme to find the good ones. And of course, they're few and far between. That is, it might be a generalization, but it is unfortunately generally true. Especially in the more mainstream parties, especially like the Democrats and the Republicans, and of course the Conservatives and the Liberals and the NDP here in Canada. There are so few MPs, there are so few members of the House of Representatives, there are so few senators or so few governors and premiers who actually stand up for good, decent, true things.
Yeah.
And usually you have to compromise a little bit to say ones are good. Like, I think both you and I, Danny, would easily declare Danielle Smith to be good, but she's far from perfect.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Of course, like, she is considered to be exceptionally fringe by comparison to the rest of Canada.
Well, not fringe. Like I don't like that word because it's got a negative.
Well, no, but like I'm saying in terms of like what they're called to be.
Outlier.
She's an outlier, but she's called fringe and extreme
by. Of course she is. Like yes. it's like on Tuesday, you and I were reading an article, and they were calling everyone who's like not on the left far right.
Far right.
I'm like, give me a break. Like if we're far right, they call them left wing. I'm like, give me a break. Here's my response to what Conquerworm said. I don't think that they're all the same. The parties are all the same, and I'll tell you why. Particularly here in Canada, The Liberal Party under Justin Trudeau, one of the first things he did when he came into office, he said it is completely not allowed to be a Liberal member and to be pro-life. You cannot be pro-life. You have to basically state that you are pro-choice if you want to be liberal. So Justin Trudeau completely banned any pro-lifers at all from the party. They don't exist in the Liberal Party. But the Conservative Party, even though the party itself, like as a whole, has made a policy that they're not going to vote on abortion issues just because it's a difficult issue for them to campaign on. They do have pro-lifers in the party. The Canada, all sorts of grassroots organizations have advocated and fought to put pro-lifers in the party. So they do exist. If there's any change that would ever happen to abortion laws in Canada, if there were any changes, they would come from the Conservative Party. They would never come from the NDP or the Liberals, because they have completely and totally expunged any and all pro-lifers from their parties. So they're not the same in that sense that there's actually pro-lifers within the Conservative caucus. Now, secondly, the pro-life, there's more freedom to talk about these issues in the Conservative Party. So, and that's the same with the Republicans. The Republican Party actually in the United States, whether it's the Republican Party federally or the Republican Party in the states, in individual states, they are far more willing and they pass way more pro-life legislation than anything done in Canada. So
yeah,
I do disagree.
Like of course, like
the same.
from the media's perspective, of course, Leroy the Goy, nice to have you on the chat. From the left, if you're not a leftist, then you're a fascist. Like you and I, like Danny, you and I have been called fascist more times than I think we can count. Fascist, racist, white supremacist, doesn't matter. All the above.
All the above.
So it's some combination. Usually they try and make up new words.
Of course. But
unfortunately they just can't match the new words invention of Biden.
Yeah. By the way, I feel like I always have to say this. Fascism is a left-wing ideology. Like the National Socialist Party.
Leroy was, of course, Leroy is. He said LOL, so we're good.
LOL?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not.
Making a serious point.
I don't think he was making a serious point.
Okay, because it just
drives. Oh, I know.
I'm a history major. I'm like, I know the founding of the fascist ideology from Giovanni Gentile. He actually said this is basically, he was fixing what he thought was the problems of communism. He's like, communism doesn't do it right. Let's do it fascism. This is a better way to do socialism. It's it's nonsense. It's total nonsense if you think that fascism is left wing. It is just not. Gentile?
Yeah, Gentile. Italian.
Yeah, but it's pronounced Gentile.
No, it's not.
Okay, well, whatever.
Giovanni Gentile.
Gentile. Okay, well, fine. I was going by Dinesh D'Souza.
That's how he pronounced it.
Oh, okay. Well, Mr. Grammar Nazi over here. Okay. Anyways, go on.
Admonish.
Admonish.
All right. So and now this next article. So House adopts resolution condemning attacks on anti-abortion facilities groups. That article is good.
It's from the Hill.
It's from the Hill, and the article suggests that everybody's condemning these attacks on pro-life facilities, but that's not actually what happened. The measure was approved in a 222 to 219 vote, with 3 Democrats voting for the bill. It specifically condemns recent attacks of vandalism, violence, and destruction against pro-life facilities, groups, and churches, and calls upon the Biden administration to use all appropriate law enforcement authorities to uphold public safety and protect the rights of pro-life facilities, groups, and churches. So, the resolution approved on Wednesday listed a number of attacks against anti-abortion institutions. They refuse to say pro-life because it's the Hill.
Of course.
So, the Democrats criticized the resolution for only condemning attacks on pro-life facilities and not including incidents that involved abortion providers. Mostly because they're saying condemning recent attacks. And secondly, there is no individual in the Republican Party or conservatives as a whole that supports violent extremism and violence to get across an agenda. We do not support somebody trying to kill abortionists. We do not support someone trying to bomb abortion clinics. We hate these facilities. They are, of course, institutes of pure evil, but we do not support violence against them. We want them to go through the proper process, go through the law, and have these places torn to the ground legally because the law restricts their operation.
Yeah, it's basically, we don't support doing evil in order to stop
in order
evil.
to accomplish a good.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, okay, well, you're not willing to condemn violence against those you don't support. But, oh yes, if it includes violence against those that we support, then we'll condemn it. But if it's people that we don't support, then we're not going to say we're against it, because really we're for it. And a lot of Democrats were supportive of the graffiti and the violence and the threats against pro-life facilities.
Yeah, there's an old adage that's very common in American politics. If the left didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. Which I always agree with, because the idea, if you really follow American politics and Canadian politics too, like follow the left-wing political groups, they are notorious for being complete, total, like gaping like hypocrites. They're like brutal hypocrites. In during COVID, when like the government was telling everyone needs to stay home, nobody can go outside, but suddenly BLM like people
George
were
Floyd
like
stuff, and instantly that is totally fine.
And in the States, medical people, frauds anyways, but doctors, they all came out and said well, we actually think that this is not going to spread COVID and it's fine, totally cool. But then in the same breath, they said but any protests against COVID measures are bad and they'll spread virus and they'll be evil, right? So total hypocrites right there, right?
Yep.
And then you look at here in Canada, when that whole, by the way, it was a hoax. The whole hoax about the children that were mass buried in Kamloops.
Mass graves.
Mass graves, thank you. The mass graves hoax in Kamloops, BC. That was a hoax. When that happened, there were suddenly enormous amounts of attacks on churches. A lot of these churches were actually native churches and churches of immigrants, right? But they were being attacked. They were being completely and totally burned down. This was happening everywhere. The Canadian government and our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, just refused to condemn them. They refused. They just outright said no. Even his former head advisor, Gerald Butt, said well, yeah, it's understandable that people are mad and and so their actions are justified. I'm they're burning down churches and you have no problem with this. But the second somebody writes a little spray painted anything on a Jewish temple or a Muslim mosque, you go nuts.
Oh, hate crime.
And it's the end of the world and racism is exploding in this country and everything goes around. So when you see the story from the Hill, these people are legit. These are not normal people. These are not the kind of people that you and I would run into on in our general interactions. You would not run into people who are this insanely hypocritical, and they know how hypocritical they are, and they're proud of it. The Democrats in Congress are not normal people. They are so brutally deceptive,
deceitful, and wicked.
Deceitful, everything about it. It's incredible to see it in real life. You're just you realize how incredibly obvious this hypocrisy is, but they'll do it anyways. It's crazy to me. I don't know if people find this just as crazy as I do, but it's amazing. You think reasonable people would be able to come to a reasonable conclusion. No, not in Congress. That's thrown out the window, and you wonder why people online are literally insane. They cannot hold a coherent thought in their heads, because our governments are basically acting like fools.
Yep.
They can't even be reasonable at all. Reason has gone out the window, and that's a great example of the kind of nonsense they pull.
Well, and of course, speaking of reason going out the window, let's just do a soft transition to It's a Trap.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Apparently, the video for It's a Trap is not working today, and I'm sorry, everybody.
Aww.
I will try and refresh it.
Okay.
So let's see. There we go. It worked. Alrighty, so it's a trap. So Danny, you want to break into your It's a Trap segment?
Sure. Okay. So so anyone who knows, like, you know, what is going on in our culture, you know that the push to basically sexualize everyone and to basically bring everyone into the LGBT camp is not organic. It is not. If anybody's been following that from the beginning, in order to basically convert all of society, they have to do it an aggressive top-down model. Okay, so the big lie that they tell you is that they're trying to lift up the marginalized. That's the lie. The lie. That's the outer horse, that they're trying to lift up the marginalized. They're trying to protect the poor underclass and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, the trap that's inside this whole veneer is that they're trying to completely and totally reframe society and turn everyone and bring everyone into the LGBT camp. And anyone who does not comply with this Marxist approach to, like, you know, conformity, everyone like that is basically like pushed to the margins of society. This is why we said in the past that the LGBTQ, like the activists, the extreme ideologues, they're trying to put Christians and anyone else who disagrees with LGBT gender theory into the closet. That's their goal. And part of that is really, really obvious in these stories that came out this recent week, because these stories are basically they will not tolerate any dissent, and they are trying to basically push this on everybody so that you cannot object. So you're basically intimidated and scared into basically holding back and not pushing back, because if you do, then the full power of the government and those who have basically hijacked all the institutions of power, they're gonna like use all their force. So these stories really highlight that. And then Stephen, you can go into them. Go for it.
Yep. I have to send the tweets out.
Oh, of course, I got you.
So, all right. Course promises to focus on serving gender and sexual minority people across the lifespan. So students at Harvard Medical School can learn about how to provide healthcare to infants who are supposedly LGBTQIA+. According to course catalog description. In the course, Caring for Patients with Diverse Sexual Orientations, Gender Identities, and Sex Development, which is regularly available at the school, students are offered the opportunity to work with patients who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, or asexual, as first reported by College Fix. Clinical exposure and education will focus on serving gender and sexual minority people across the lifespan, from infants to older adults, the course description says. What the heck? You can't have an LGBTQIA+, you're crazy, infant. Just like you can't have that for a toddler. Because any toddler is just like, I think I'm a boy. Well, it's like, well, no, you're confused. You're a toddler. You also think you're a princess. You think you're a dinosaur. You think you're Han Solo from Star Wars.
Yeah. It's like the ultimate form of gaslighting. They're trying to gaslight, like, okay, so I talked about this with a friend on Facebook today, that basically we have completely abandoned the idea that kids should be protected. Like that we used to be that everyone agreed protecting kids is good. We should always protect kids from everyone, from strangers, from child predators, from everything else. Now children are based like this, and by the way, this push to basically make kids open season is coming most aggressively from the LGBT community. for the activists.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
you have to separate. There's people in that community who are just regular people who just want to live their lives and they don't want to. They just want you to leave them alone. There's that group, but then there's the hardcore, loud activists, the ones that are fighting to change institutions, to completely punish anyone who disagrees. Like there's those. Okay, what's happening is they're trying to gaslight society and tell them children. A child, so this is an infant, anywhere from 0, children, anyone from 0 to 9 years old, that they are fully and totally capable of making any kind of decision about their health, about who they associate with, about who they trust. That we've known for the longest time, for most of human history, the smaller a child is, the easier it is to take advantage of them, to separate them from their like the people who are protecting them. It's incredibly easy, right? To take advantage of children, which is why they have to be protected. These lunatics are advocating for not only that they should be completely free to indoctrinate them in schools long before they even hit puberty, but all the way down to infants. That you can actually like have medical and psychological interventions on children long before they're even capable of understanding. Like a child, an infant, isn't even able to tell you. What was Stephen? What was the age when children don't have like that concept that if you leave the room that you still exist? Like there's like kind of a.
I don't know what age that is.
It's the peekaboo effect, basically.
Essentially, yeah.
Why does peekaboo work? Because if a child can't see you, they don't realize that you're still there, that you still exist. I remember studying this. That's how a child's brain works. They can't even tell that if they can't see an object, that it still exists somewhere. At some point, a child will get the idea that even if they can't see the object, it's still somewhere, and they'll start looking for it. You're telling me that a child who cannot it's called object permanence. That is a level of development of a child. You're telling me a child who cannot even tell that you take away an object and it still exists somewhere, that a child like that knows that it's different gender. This is the ludicrous insanity that they're trying to push on you, and it's amazing to me that people fall for this. Like, yes, a toddler can't figure this out, but full-grown adults fall for this nonsense.
Yep.
And they think like, oh, that's compassionate. Yes, you're right. You're right. A little like less than 1-year-old infant, they understand incredibly complex ideas about gender, even though they can't even talk. They can't even like mouth words, but yes, they know their gender. Like these are like child predators to the extreme. Like they want to push their crazy ideologies on a child, on an infant. It's crazy to me, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Get away with this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely obscene what they can get away with and what they can try to force. And of course, like this is just indicative that they've been trying to push it younger and younger. And as anosmia, I think that's how you say that, is saying that's exceptionally predatory. They're taking children when they are at their most susceptible to new information, that they will accept blindly whatever you tell them. And if you tell them that they are the other gender, if you tell them that they are a girl trapped in a boy's body, they'll believe you because they have an innate trust of those in authority over them, especially their parents, teachers, and those of the like.
Yeah, I remember way back. I used to work with children in childcare, in the Boys and Girls Club style kind of organizations. I remember I always like to tell a story. I remember we were all going with these kids. These are like school age kids, so grade 1 all the way to grade 6. We were going to a pool, and as we were going, I was talking to a bunch of the kids. Some of them, the grade 6 were with me, but we had a couple of grade 1s and 2s with us. I was actually joking, and I was telling the kids I'm kind of scared because I have these new swimsuit, this great swimsuit, but the problem with it is if it gets wet, it's going to dissolve, and that's going to be really bad and all that. So I hope that doesn't happen. And the kids were like, really? It's gonna like dissolve in the water? I'm like, yeah, it's bad. I'm like, I hope you don't see my butt. The kids were actually oh my god, they literally believe me. And they, of course, the grade 6 kids, They understood that I was joking. The grade 1 and 2 kids, they were easily convinced. Of course, I told them afterwards. I'm like, yeah, I'm just kidding. It wasn't real. But that's how easy it was.
Oh yeah,
it was super easy to convince a kid. You're telling me if it's that easy for me to convince a kid of something absurd, like that my swimsuit's going to dissolve, you think that telling a kid that, oh, by the way, you were born in the wrong body, they're incredibly impressionable. They don't have any ability to critically think. Like, it's insane that these people get away with this stuff. This is why I encourage conservatives. It's not enough for you to just stay out of it, be like, oh, I don't want to like cancel. You have to speak up against this. You have people who are who are figurative, like wolves, trying to pretend that they're like shepherds.
Yep.
But meanwhile, they want to take your kids. It's so incredibly like brutal what they're doing to people. Yeah. So this is stuff.
So that's of course what they're trying to convince and push onto infants, and then of course what they're trying to push onto older students, older kids, is exceptionally dangerous and really scary. So Penn State professor tells straight students in his sociology class to watch gay porn because we are all at least some level non-binary and very easily bisexual. So Sam Richard aired the challenge to students during a lecture for his entry-level sociology class in December and was met with silence. The awkward exchange came during a discussion billed on Richard's syllabus as a conversation on trans issues, TERFs, and the binary. Footage of the lesson, which was recorded live and subsequently posted to Richard's YouTube channel, has since stirred up sentiments of outrage, as it should. So, footage of the lesson. The school, meanwhile, is standing by its staffer's statements, telling Daily Mail Thursday that academic freedom for faculty is necessary to achieve critical thinking and discussion within its student body. The problematic excerpt from the lesson, which according to the now private video was delivered on December 6th, begins with Richards addressing the straight folks in his gender and culture class, which is the largest of its kind in the country. If you're straight, watch gay or lesbian porn and see how quickly you feel aroused and how you can't control that. He reportedly asked in the clip, which was viewed by Fox News, singling out his male students, especially men, as the professor puts in the clip, you'll realize that, oh, darn, I could be sexualized by people who are like me. Richards, who has won several awards over the course of his 32-year career, went on to assert that we're all some level non-binary and very much bisexual. Reportedly met with a wall of silence from the 700 or so students. Yeah, because that'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah, but university professor basically telling you, like, go watch gay porn.
Yeah,
that's not problematic that's any problem.
Just totally normal.
Yeah, you know what the ideology that's driving him. Because like we talked about this before, the idea is that the people in the gay community believe that everyone is on the spectrum, every single person. This is why they refuse to call anyone who's not gay cisgender, or like who's not in one of the trans kind of like identities, that you're cis, right? Is you're not like you're not
normal. One of us.
You're not one of us. You're cis, but they're basically, the idea behind that is that we are like, even if you don't believe, even if you don't agree with the whole gender spectrum ideology, that you're still on it. And they require you to play the game. You have to play the game. You have to play along. You cannot say, oh no, I'm not trans and I'm not gay. Like, you have to refer to yourself as a cis white male. Why do you say those terms? Because they need you to acknowledge that the spectrum exists, and that you, even if you don't agree with their ideology, you have to like say the words. You have to like basically acknowledge that their claim of reality. And second, you have to claim that you're white skin. In other words, you have to acknowledge the idea of like, white privilege and the whole CRT kind of nonsense. This is how they're fighting the war. They're fighting the war by forcing you to use their language. This is why I refuse. I don't care like who asked me or when they asked me. I refuse to use the language.
To go by pronouns.
To go by pronouns. I don't use the pronoun thing. People ask me like, what are your pronouns? I'm like, I don't have pronouns. No. Nobody owns pronouns. Pronouns are an objective, thing that's separate from people. They're an objective statement of reality. Nobody owns pronouns anymore. You can own conjecture or not conjectures, adjectives and all sorts of like different kind of like parts of grammar. Similarly, I refuse to use the language of white and black, like the whole CRT thing. I'm like, no, I don't use that. I'm like, no, I don't believe that anybody should have the right to discriminate against another one because of their color of their skin. That just doesn't work. So don't play the game. That's how this is where the battle is taking place, and people are conceding the battle before they even fight. This is the problem. People are just like, well, it's just easier to go along with it. And that's exactly the same thing as the COVID nonsense that happened over the last 2 years. Just wear the mask, just get the vaccine, just do as you're told. It's the do as you're told.
Go along to get along.
Go along to get along. And you will not realize how easy it is for them to get you to comply if you just have that, I don't want any problems, so I'm just going to go along with it. Before you know it, you've been basically put in a cage and you don't even realize it. That's how this works.
Yeah. No, so, and just responding and addressing. So Tishko, I believe that's how you say that. So in reference to he and she being basic pronouns, and kind of going along, and those people who have he, him, or she, her in their pronouns, that's not what they are. He saying, oh, I have the pronouns, and my preferred pronouns is he, him. That's how they define themselves. It's not what they are. When a trans person says, oh, I'm he, him, that's how they define themselves. It's going along with the ideology of biology and reality is irrelevant in comparison to our own feelings and sensitivities.
Yeah.
That's why we will never use this he, him, she, her. That's why people that do that to go along to get along are just trying to appease a mob. Yeah. We're not trying to appease the mob. We are acting in active opposition to the mob because we disagree with the mob because it's dangerous.
You have to remember too that the people, this is not, again, this is why I have to remind you, this is not an organic movement. There are people who sat down and came up with a strategy. How are we going to turn society into supporting our cause? And they sat down and they came up with a plan. Because remember, the drag queen story hour, that was not organic. That was a legitimately planned, organized, orchestrated plan that was created by a bunch of transgender ideologue activists, and that's their strategy for how they're going to basically silence and change the narrative to their cause. So with the transgender pronouns, they sat down, they decided, how are we going to get people to comply? And they realized, oh, we're going to force people to use the language, because what they're doing is they're making a statement of reality. Yep. They're making a claim about reality. They're saying the reality that the theory of reality that I have is that everyone is there's gender is a spectrum. There's no difference between male and female. That's their theory. But by forcing you to use their preferred language, they're forcing you to basically acknowledge that their reality is right and yours is not. You have to abandon your own claim to reality. Think about that if you change the subject. Imagine if I'm a Christian, I met a Muslim, and I met a Hindu. And the Hindu came up to us and said, I'm a Hindu. You have to say that there are there are tons of gods. That there's no such thing as one God. There are many gods. And I'm like, well, no, I believe that there's one God. No, you can't say that. You have to say that there's many gods. And they force you. And if you don't say what they want you to say about reality, then they use the law and they use punishments and they use all sorts of social stigma to punish you for not saying what they believe is true. In other words, they're being the aggressors and they're forcing you to comply and to state what they believe is true. And if you don't, you're the bad guy, you're evil for not saying what they believe. I mean, in normal conversation, you'd be like, yeah, that's not right. You shouldn't someone to state what you believe. If a Muslim came up to you and said, you have to say that Allah exists, you have to say that Muhammad is the God's prophet, and you have to you can't eat certain foods. You'd be like, that's wrong. But when a transgender person comes to you and says, you have to do what I say, you have to use the languages you have to basically make the true statements that I'm making. And if you don't, you're evil and you're mean and you're killing people like me. Like, when you really reframe it, you realize that is evil. But apparently, if you don't comply, that they're trying to tell you that you're the bad guy. When you're not. They're the bad guys for forcing you and to try to basically rob you of your ability to believe what you want. It's pure evil. And people don't see it. That is how it works. That's exactly how that whole situation works.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep. All right. So we do have to move on, but this has been a great conversation. For those who are in the chat, we love a good dynamic chat. We try as much as possible not to create an echo chamber.
Yeah.
So if I encourage everybody, share with those who disagree. We want to have conversations across the aisle. The conversation last week, even though it kind of devolved into nonsense, we enjoy it because we enjoy having shrewd conversations and not devolving into emoticism. So I know you disagree with us, Chichko, but thank you for coming. But we are now going to jump into the news that you may have missed, and we'll still address comments as they come up. So first story. No. Gallery owner soaks homeless woman with garden hose in viral video. So let's just watch this because it's the first 5 seconds of it, and it's interesting. Yeah. So that was a quick little clip. So the owner of a posh San Francisco art gallery is being showered with scorn after he was nabbed on a viral video spraying a homeless woman with a garden hose. Calder Quinn, the owner of a Foster Gwynn gallery in the California city's upscale Jackson Square neighborhood, admitted that he hosed down the woman to get her off his sidewalk on Monday. The gallery owner insisted the whole community had failed her. So the whole neighborhood is a part of the situation. The police force is a part of the situation. The city and the social services is a part of the situation. There have been repeated attempts to try and help this woman, who is psychotic. There's absolutely nothing that can be done. They take her to a shelter. She'll turn her out in 2 days, take her to a hospital. They'll release her within a day. The video that was first posted on TikTok and was widely shared on Twitter, garnering thousands of views, drew the ire of online critics. So this is an interesting video. And I think it could have been done in a much better way. Instead of just spraying her, be like, okay, ma'am, I've asked you to leave. This is my private property. And you have repeatedly we called the police and you've come back here. We sent you to the hospital. You come back here. This is becoming a consistent, repeated problem. And we will protect our property. We're not going to resort to lethal force, but I will make it uncomfortable for you to stay. It's dousing her with water for the first 5-10 seconds is okay. It's dude, just spray her once. Be like, all right, move along. Otherwise, I'm going to spray you again until you leave.
Yeah. I think the problem is that in this situation, I hate to say it, but you're treating the woman like a dog, like an animal. Because that's what you do to birds, that's what you do to dogs, that's what you do to, animals that are clustering over your property or something like that. But the problem is I know it's San Francisco, and I know people are, the cops there are terrible. Nobody's taking care of the problems that exist. But ultimately, there's a limit to, there's human dignity that has to be respected. That's why I'm I'm not a big fan of this myself. So, all right, I'm gonna take the next story. So this is from Newsweek. Ukraine could strike devastating blow to Putin as military struggles. So that's kind of a big deal, actually.
Yep, it is.
In this whole thing. So Crimea has emerged as a central talking point in the war in Ukraine, and as President Volodymyr Zelensky's military forces continue their momentum on the battlefield, Russia faces a legitimate threat of losing the peninsula it took by force in 2014, according to military analysts. That would be huge because, Russia needs a win of some kind. After Ukraine surprised many experts around the globe by mounting a strong against the Russian invasion that began in late February, Zelensky began publicly stating that he wants Crimea to be once again considered part of his country. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin will only refuse to relinquish Crimea, and he has said that he wants 4 Ukrainian territories he illegitimately annexed in September to be recognized as part of Russia before he agrees to any potential peace talks. However, Putin may not be given the choice for negotiations. Military is a possibility that Zelensky could take control of Crimea. John Spencer. Is that Vladimir Zelensky? No, that's John Spencer. That retired U.S. major and chair of urban warfare studies at this newsbreak. I think it's not unfeasible with the arsenal democracy. Oh, give me a break. Start calling it democracy. That the Ukrainian military couldn't create a situation where it wasn't tenable for Russian formations to be in Crimea's largest city and places like that. So basically what's going on is the war is not going well for Russia. And it's looking like Russia could potentially take a massive loss and have to potentially leave the war having gained nothing, which would be a gigantic disaster for Putin because he launched this war. The Russian citizens have lost a ton, and in order for him to kind of come out of this conflict without any kind of potential gain would be a massive disaster for Russia. So kudos to Ukraine. They're basically with the support of everyone in the world, basically they're basically gaining the upper hand in this war. So at this point it sounds like Russia's fizzling out. And it sounds like Ukraine might actually come out of this with potentially no major losses. I mean, territorially speaking. So we'll see what happens. That's going to be a crazy
It should be interesting going forward. But another interesting situation. So Chippendale star Kumail Nanjiani says Hollywood is now scared of casting non-white guys as baddies. Industry's effort to become more woke is limiting interesting roles to non-white actors. I want to play more bad guys. So the actor, 44, stars as strip club owner turned murderer Salman Steve Banerjee in Hulu's Welcome to Chippendales. I've never gotten to play an arc like this. By far the most layered, complex, complicated person I've ever played. He doesn't believe that he would have gotten the role if it wasn't based on a true story, as he said Hollywood is scared to cast non-white villains. I think Hollywood now, even though trying to be more diverse, is still weird. For years, many villain roles were played by people of color, including Art Malik in True Lies and Ving Rhames in Pulp Fiction. White villains have increasingly dominated the screen, including Tom Hiddleston in Thor and Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. So, yeah, this is interesting, and it's very true, but it's very unusual for a fairly big name actor or actress to notice this. I can't remember a modern new film that actually has a non-white villain. Yeah. So it's funny because Hollywood is becoming Hollywood is getting so completely out of touch with real life and real people. The fact that they refuse to put in anyone but white people as villains shows that their agenda is getting in the way of good entertainment, and people are noticing that Hollywood has movie sales in the last 2 years have been brutal, and Hollywood, even Disney is really starting to at the realization of that. Just two quick notes, Steve. So one is someone in the chat said that we support hosting dumb people. I personally don't. I think an actual case could be made that you have to do something. I personally would not go that far because I think it's human dignity. You shouldn't be spraying people down on the street. That's just not cool myself. And then the other thing was that what was it? So in case anybody wondering, I mentioned it before. Stephen has this flag upside down because that's a symbol of Stephen. Nation in distress.
Yeah, nation in distress. which is why he has it, because we believe that the Canada, its nation, is in distress, and it hasn't stopped for a lot of reasons. So, but that's the reason. So on purpose. All right, are you done? Take the next story. Yeah, I'll take the next story here.
Yeah.
True North. Okay, so True North. Halton School Board may soon finally deal with prosthetic breast teacher. If you guys have been following the story, basically, like, a big, humongous, kerfuffle happened in the summer where this school shop teacher decided to, that they're transgender, and they decided to, that part of their identity required them to have enormous, oversized, breasts that they basically wore in school. And there was an enormous backlash because of that. So here's an update. So at a special meeting last week, trustees, and you can scroll down there, trustees approved the request to Education Director Curtis Enns to craft a professionalism policy for teachers, which includes a requirement to maintain appropriate and professional standards of dress in the classroom. This is, of course, directed at the situation of trans teacher Kayla Lemieux, who has come to class since September sporting mammoth prosthetic breasts and tight tops with fake nipples showing. Lemieux, they basically started in the fall wearing this obscene and unprofessional outfit to class at Oakville Trafalgar High School. This has been an international story. It's been a gigantic thing. So a little bit farther down, the report claimed professionalism must be balanced with the culture of respect, equity, inclusion, and that employers need to allow employees to express themselves according to their lived gender. In other words, they were concerned about a lawsuit and not about the kids being exposed to this caricature of a drag performer. Education Minister, so a little bit farther down, Stephen Leslie, no doubt, hounded by complaints from parents, threatening a lawsuit, at long last spoke up just before the Christmas about Lemieux's highly unprofessional classroom garb. He indicated that when teachers are in front of kids, they should be expected to uphold the highest standards of professionalism. So it sounds like the school board is finally realizing that they can't keep this up, and that this is both an embarrassment locally, internationally, and that they're not going to be able to escape the parents, because now there's a lawsuit coming. I remember I saw an interview on Rebel News. There's a lawsuit coming against the school board because of their, completely and totally unjustifiable stance protecting this professor. Again, another example of, if you're transgender, and if you're, even like the outranked gay right now, but if you're transgender, you're at the top of the intersectional pyramid. Mm-hmm. You can get just about anything. You literally can. Yep. That's why last week there was a big panic, because there was a transgender person that they were wondering if they should put them on a death penalty, because they actually deserved it, but they're transgender, maybe they don't get the death penalty. Again, this is the world we live in right now, where if you're transgender, you can get away with almost anything, just about.
Yep. Just about.
Mm-hmm.
What was that called? Yeah.
What?
The Umbrella Academy, the superhero film. Oh, what was it called? I'm trying to remember. The Daily Wire superhero film. It had the guy from
I know you're talking
Princess
about
Bride.
Carrie Ells, yeah, Carrie Ells.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah,
what about that?
No, it was just that Conqueror said that film was pretty. I haven't actually watched it. I've had a Daily Wire membership for a long time, and just haven't got around to watching that. I've just watched What Is a Woman 4 times. I have viewings at my house several times. But
the Hyperions.
Yes, the Hyperions. So NDP demanded an investigation into Smith on COVID prosecution meddling accusations. Premier Danielle Smith campaigned on dropping COVID tickets and fines in her leadership bid, and she has since recommitted to ending the prosecutions of lockdown scofflaws when asked by Rebel News reporters. So, an immediate independent investigation is warranted into Danielle Smith's interactions with Crown prosecutors in light of her admission that she has frequently questioned them about their prosecutorial judgment. The province of Alberta is facing a Crown prosecutor shortage, with real crimes against real victims under threat of going unprosecuted or being tossed out of court over unconstitutional delays. Smith first expressed her desire to end the use of government resources to go after those accused of COVID crimes, like opening a church without attendance caps or having Christmas dinner outside of the social bubble, in her campaign kickoff to replace outgoing UCP Premier Jason Kenney. So the move was, of course, to mend fences, which was necessary after the actions that the UCP took in the past. Oh my gosh. So, yes, it was necessary to speak out against the prosecutorial regime of the Crown prosecutors and the courts here in Alberta because of their actions against those who they claim have committed COVID crimes. Like, when they deemed necessary that Artur Pawlowski had to have an addendum to everything that he was saying against COVID, to be like, well, my words go against the public health. Like, that was absolutely disgusting.
It was like the kind of thing they do in North Korea, when you have to, like, you know, read out loud in public, you know, a prepared statement. Like, that's North Korea's style tactics. And that's the problem with that.
So I see nothing wrong with her criticizing the actions of the Crown during COVID. And what Danielle Smith is doing is trying to extend an olive branch to those whom the Alberta government under Kenney harmed because of their actions, which went against their innate and human rights and charter rights, according to the Canadian Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. So this is a good action from Danielle Smith. I've been very pleased with her so far.
Me too. Yeah, so this is Alberta politics, if anybody from the state wondering. Alberta Alberta was basically the Florida of Canada, if you're American. They basically were the only province that was really pushing back against COVID mandates, which is why when Kenney, who was our premier, got ousted, replaced by Danielle Smith, a lot of people felt like, is she going to be the same? Turns out that she's actually been quite a bit different. And so a lot of us are very happy because she's basically the closest thing to a DeSantis in Canada. Like, you know, like a premier, basically a governor, that is actually fighting against the COVID nonsense. The NDP is basically the Democrats trying to take her down. So I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad that we're kind of, you know, that we're seeing good leadership, at least finally, after a long absence.
And
by the way,
for those who don't know, Danny and I went to this church for about a year and a half.
Yes, we did. So it's one of the only churches in Calgary that refused to close.
Yes,
and refused to
shirk,
to send people away if they weren't sending. Wearing masks.
Yeah, Leroy. What's going on with firearms? Alberta has said that they are going to institute a court challenge against the handgun and the hunting gun restrictions that the federal government is trying to institute. It's going to be a court challenge for a while, just like the court challenges to the carbon tax, the court challenges with the Sovereignty Act. A lot of things, like, basically Danielle Smith is just saying, like, you try and impose something on Alberta, we're going to take you to court, we're going to, like, hold it up and keep it stalled in the courts so that it will not take effect, just because the overreach of the federal government, especially via the Trudeau Liberals, has been disgusting. It's just one of the many reasons why we are such big fans of Danielle.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Leroy, as well, the little the dilemma you presented, like if there's a panda bear falling out of a tree or a person falling out of a tree, would I catch? I'm like, well, the answer always is you always save the human. And like if there's a dog drowning and a trans or a gay person drowning, I'm saving the human always. That's always the way to go.
Yeah.
In case you're wondering, it's a very simple dilemma.
Yes.
Okay, we got one last story here. Unless do you want to catch something else, or?
Oh no, go for it.
Okay. So this is from the New York Post. Lisa Marie Presley dead at 54. So Lisa Marie Presley, singer and daughter of Elvis Presley, died Thursday. She was 54. She's actually quite young. You know, that's not like. Presley was hospitalized in critical condition after reportedly suffering cardiac arrest at her Calabasas home Thursday. She was in an induced coma and on life support with a temporary pacemaker, according to TMC. It is with a heavy heart that I must share the devastating news that my beautiful daughter, Lisa Marie, has left us, Priscilla Presley said in a statement Thursday evening. She was the most passionate, strong, and loving woman I have ever known. Sergeant Sean Maloney of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office told the Post that deputies responded to a call at the 5900 block of Normandy Drive in Calabasas at about 10:40 a.m. Thursday at the request of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. The call involved a female in cardiac arrest. So, you can read more details about this, but here's my question to you all. I'm going to throw in the most controversial question in the entire world. What do you think, percentage-wise, the chances are that this has anything to do with the jib jab? I'm thinking very high.
Yep.
That's my thought, because there have been way too many coincidences lately. And like I said on Tuesday, there are only two ways to completely rule out a vaccine possibility, like the possibility of a vaccine being responsible for something related to the heart, particularly in people like this. One, if the person is not vaccinated, and two, if the person, if we do an autopsy. Autopsies are the only way to 100% rule out, a vaccine injury. That's the only two ways. If I'm wrong, please let me know. That's what I've I've heard from experts, that there's only two ways to rule out. Oh, something happened.
What?
Oh, I don't know what's going on.
Not on my end.
Oh, no, just looking at the Twitter. Sorry, the Twitch feed. Anyways,
Nope.
Yeah, so those are the only two ways I have ever seen that you can rule out something. Okay? With on Tuesday, we also covered a story about a CTV News reporter, and we didn't put that story in, did we, Steven?
No.
No, that's okay.
Well, it's just something we can talk about.
Yeah, just maybe pull up the story. We can kind of address it really quick. Basically, if anybody's been watching, there was a lady from CTV News, which is a Canadian news organization, and she basically had a medical issue on air live. It's a viral video, went worldwide. It was crazy. So we were wondering, on Tuesday, that doesn't look good. We were speculating as to the possibility of the JB Jab being responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, there was an actual response, and she basically came out and said oh, thank you for everyone. Good feelings. And then she threw out a completely spurious idea that, oh, by the way, I've also been getting harassment and attacks and hate from these anti-vax lunatics. And I'm like, okay, right there, it's you are not acting in good faith. When you start throwing those kind of nonsense out, now we're okay, now it seems like you're now postulating a narrative. This is a tactic that's always done by leftists. Whenever they want to discredit anybody on the other side, they always claim, oh, I'm being attacked. Oh, I'm receiving hatred. Oh, I'm receiving mean tweets or whatever. This is what Disney did with that Kenobi controversy.
Mm-hmm.
They've been oh, I've been receiving all these terrible threats and all that, and they couldn't produce any legitimate evidence of those kind of tweets. This is what they're doing here, this woman. Now, a little update about her. So this is Jessica Robb. She said in her statement that oh, I'm not going to tell anyone my medical history. That's private. But somebody sent me an update and told me that, by the way, she posted on Twitter that she's been triple jabbed.
Mm-hmm.
So right there, you can't rule out jibby jab injury because she's vaccinated. So that's it's at least plausible. The question of whether or not the jibby jab was responsible, well, you know what? There's a lot of ways to find that out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't believe that the media is going to tell you the truth, especially somebody who is a true believer in everything to do with Pfizer, or whatever.
Yep.
Or whatever she got.
All right, but now kind of transitioning from that into our final segment of the day, which is also related to jibby jabs, will be the douche of the week. And the douche of the week is Washington Governor Jay Inslee.
I bet you if you asked everybody, does anybody know who the
The Washington governor is.
Yeah, like, oh no, who it is, like the name of the guy. I'm like, I couldn't have told you. I'm like, nope, he's just not in the news much.
No, he's not. He's not. But he should be, especially after these comments. So the governor will not commit to rehiring unvaccinated state workers. So reporter Katie Daviscourt confronted the Washington State Democrat governor on his policy of firing unvaccinated government employees Wednesday afternoon. Inslee's wife Trudy answered, "No, we are pro-vaccine."
Of course they are.
So this is the video from Rebel News.
Governor Inslee, are you going to rehire the state workers that you fired over the vaccine mandate?
I'm going to go see the Seattle Seahawks beat the 49ers this weekend.
That's great. Trudy, do you think that they should be rehired? There's enough data that's come out now.
Along with everybody else.
Yep. So he won't answer, his wife answers. And this is, of course, what it currently looks like at the backyard of the mansion. This is because there haven't been state workers. It's because there's been a shortage of workers across the board because of these vaccine mandates.
Hey guys, Katie Daviscourt reporting for Rebel News, and I thought I would take you on a quick little tour of what it looks like in the backyard of Governor Inslee's mansion and the Washington State Capitol. Since Governor Inslee is delivering his State of the State address, I thought it is important to share an accurate depiction of what his policies have caused.
Yikes.
That's brutal, eh?
That's brutal. Welcome to Washington State. That's what Democrat policies get you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Homeless encampment right outside his house. Yikes. Yikes. And there's no excuse for that sort of thing. There's no excuse to have a homeless encampment, to have a trash-infested wasteland outside the governor's mansion, and just in general, because you refuse to rehire thousands of people because they refuse to take an experimental drug. This is absolutely nonsensical. It is cruel. I remember we were reporting a couple months ago about the state of New York. And the state of New York, the judge decreed that unvaccinated employees, nurses, firefighters, police, had to be rehired.
Yep.
And they had to be paid back pay. We were jubilant. And unfortunately, so far, such things have not happened in the state of Washington. And despite all of the evidence that the vaccines do not prevent transmission, they do not prevent infection, and there are questionable risks with taking them.
Yeah, a lot of them.
That we can't be assured of in any way, because we don't know what's in it. We don't know what they've changed. We don't know what they've done because they won't give us any of that information. And they actually had to fight it in court to reveal what happened in their trials. Like, this is really questionable stuff that went on. And yet there are still governors, there are still policymakers who choose to force these things upon their citizens. Why? Because they can.
And the thing is, like, this is the problem with, particularly, like, politics nowadays, is that there's so much power and so little accountability that people can get away with this, right? Because the governor, he doesn't have to actually provide you with any actual science, like scientific studies, scientific evidence, whatever. He doesn't have to do any of that. He just needs to find a handful of handpicked, medical, like people with medical licenses, and just use them as, like, his talking points, and they'll say whatever he wants, and then, like, he can basically pile drive this stuff through. But this has come up a little bit in the chat. People are asking, it's science, and how do we know this or that? Over the last 2 years, Stephen and I have done like a ridiculous amount of exposés about the science as it emerged about vaccines, about all these things. Like, there's a couple of facts that we've been able to conclude based on the innumerable studies out there. Like, one fact for sure is that the vaccines do not stop transmission, period. and stop. They do not stop transmission. Even like the head of the CDC has admitted this. Pfizer, Moderna, all the major pharmaceuticals have all admitted that the vaccine does not stop transmission. If that's the case, which it is, because the science, like even Pfizer's own documentation about their trials has basically proven without a shadow of a doubt that they don't stop transmission. The only justification you can use to mandate and to basically say, if you don't have a vaccine, you can't be around other people, is if the vaccine stops transmission, which it doesn't. When that's the case, you cannot, forbid someone to be around if they're unvaccinated, because being vaccinated does not stop you from spreading the virus to someone else. So that whole justification's gone out the window. The problem is the governor of Washington couldn't care less about science. He cares about power, which is why he's pushing this through. Which is why in BC right now, in our neighbor province here in Canada, the government of BC has passed Bill C-36. What they're doing is that not only are they trying to basically enforce these unscientific, not supported by the medical literature out there, by the studies out there, by all this evidence that has proven that the vaccines are nowhere near as efficacious as people claim, and nowhere near as safe as they basically pass a law that says you cannot criticize or even say a word in that does not comply with what the experts or the people in charge of the medical community are saying. So basically, there is absolutely no checks and balances anymore. If hypothetically they knew that this thing is killing everyone who takes it, there is absolutely no one who can actually say, hey, by the way, whistleblower, there's a problem here, because they basically made it illegal to be a whistleblower or to even suggest that this thing is not safe or effective. That is not a recipe for safety. That is a recipe for abuse and a recipe for incredible disasters. There's a reason why we don't trust the medical institutions out there, because they've lied to us for over 3 years now. They have lied to us and they've lied to our faces. Fauci was the douche of the year 2 years running because of that, because of the incredible amounts of lies that they were saying. They were lying right to your face, and they had no problem lying to your face. And then when things didn't go their way, they're like, oh, the science changed. So there's no accountability. So when it comes to Washington and this governor, this is abusive policy, and it's not policy based on any science. And the fact that that he's so clearly flippant about any criticism of his policy shows what Democrat governors and leaders are like. They don't care about people. They only care about whatever their ideology is and how they can get it passed. It's the ends justify the means to them. That's the way it works. Stephen, any thoughts on that, on him, or any additional to add?
No, I'm just kind of searching through the chat.
Sure. Okay, so I'll say one more thing. So
Hogan is true though. That's true.
One thing I saw in the chat, a lot of people are criticizing that this story was from Rebel News. Now, I want to warn people. There's something called a genetic fallacy out there. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't know what that is, even if you do, I'll just kind of explain it quickly. Genetic fallacy is basically a source fallacy. It's like saying, oh, anything that this website or this news organization says is automatically false because of the fact that they're that they're news organization or whatever. Okay. That is not intellectually honest, because even if you believe that Rebel News is not a trustworthy news organization, you have to evaluate what they present to you on its face for its own validity. Rebel News, here they have videos. They have videos.
It's really hard to go against video.
You have videos of them on site during the Freedom Convoy. Rebel News was on site reporting from the ground, interviewing people at the actual protest. Whereas all the mainstream media from CTV, CBC, all the legacy media here in Canada, None of them would go on site, and they were all
only interviewing passerby.
Yes, and they were all caught saying blatant lies about the people at the rally. So that was a clinic on fake news here in Canada. So I will actually read a CBC article and I will evaluate what they say based on what they present to me. I won't just dismiss them because they're CBC. I'm skeptical when it's CBC, but I'll still read to see if what they say is accurate or not. But I'm careful, to evaluate it, knowing what their bias is, right? Okay, so you have to like examine the evidence and not just rule it out because it's Rebel News. Okay, and I will actually say I believe Rebel News is far more committed to like accurate journalism than CBC or CTV or Global or like the what do you call it, Toronto Star, because they receive money from our government here.
The Star, yikes!
The Star is terrible. It's brutal. So yeah, so you have to evaluate every story based on what they present to you, not because of the source. I always warn people about that. Okay. I think that's pretty much everything I got to say about this governor. I don't know. Like, is anybody actually experienced this in yourself? Like, where you've actually seen being rejected or being told not to, that you can't do something or something like that during pandemic? Because we saw this everywhere. We actually have friends. I had friends in my own personal Bible study that literally lost their jobs because the government told them, by the way, you're a dirty, unvaccinated. They're basically like rats. They dehumanize them because of their medical, a personal medical decision. And I thought that wasn't right. And so I'm sad that this is still happening in America and in Canada. I'm really, really sad that this is actually still happening. So I'm hoping that it changes up in the near future anyway. Yeah. You're really stuck in that chat, aren't you? It's good.
Well, it's good. It's pretty decent. Yeah, so we're pretty much done. We're pretty much done. The douche of the week. Yeah. Leroy, it's too easy. That is true. I was like, and I seem to be the only one who gets that it was totally a joke.
Oh, I see it. He's like, I don't trust Rebel News, only Young Turks. I'm like,
only Young
there
Turks,
it is.
Yep.
There it is.
Totally.
Sarcasm doesn't come through the text.
Oh, I know. So
that's right.
Yeah, we're gonna. No jokes are. It was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a reason that there's a running gag that the left can't meme.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do it on the run because last week we had a God bless him, the guy, he was very skeptical, but he demanded that we give him sources.
We source everything on the fly.
Yeah, we source everything on the fly, live on air. I'm like, that's just not possible.
As we said last week, and we'll repeat it this week. If you want sources for anything that Danny has claimed, for anything that I have claimed, give us the text. Yeah. Ask us where we got it.
Yeah.
We can source it for you. We'll find it. Yeah. Might take a little bit of time, which is why we can't do it on air. You send us an email, you put a comment on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, any of those things, we will find it and we'll get it to you. But we're not going to provide it right now because we have, how many sources do we have that we've collectively gone through? Thousands.
I literally have a document with over 100 different sources.
Oh, that's just the one.
For just masks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not even counting vaccines.
That's and of course,
COVID, the lockdowns.
We do the show and we do video calling via Discord. Our Discord server has, this is episode 242. We have probably 251 individual chat links and there are links that we put, all of what we do in those chats are sources. That's why we have how we present it. If I go back to the stories tab, that's why everything is in this format, so we can go through source by source by source by source, so we can show you where we got this information, so that we can prove to you that we're not the ones making it up. We take the information, and yes, we're going to provide commentary. We're not claiming to be unbiased sources of commentary.
No.
But what we're presenting is a source.
The question is whether or not we're trustworthy. And
well, that's for people to deem for themselves.
Well, like, you can show yourself trustworthy by being transparent about where you get your stuff. And like, this is why I personally really like shows like Timcast. I really like shows like Louder with Crowder. I really like shows even like Fox News and all these other places, because they give you the sources. I've literally gone through MSNBC stories. I've gone through CNN stories. I've gone through CBC stories, CTV stories, where they give you some kind of like, they make some claim or they appeal to something, but then they never provide you with a link. They hide the link because they don't want you to read for yourselves. That's why we try to source all of our stuff. And this is why I went to all the trouble of creating a website where I put all of the information that I've compiled. It's taken me like hours upon hours upon hours to put this together. That's a lot of work, but I do it because I want to be transparent. I want people to find this info. I don't want them to just trust me and be like, well, Danny knows everything. I'm like, no. I've literally gone through the work of compiling hundreds of NASC studies so that you can like look it up for yourself. So I encourage you, go check it out. Every one of our episodes has like the links to our articles. Go to the website, theshrewddudes.com, and you will find like a resources page. You'll find a ton. There's like literally hundreds of sources, studies there. Go through them, check it out. If we're wrong on anything, please let me know. I've been willing to admit I'm wrong lots of times. Yep. Stephen told me I was wrong about a Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode, and I was like, no, that was not. Like the episode where Peralta,
episode 2, the tag,
where he busted the chief deputy's son, and I was like, no, that was later on. That can't be the second episode. And then you showed me, and I'm like, well, I stand corrected.
Oh wow. Leroy, I have not seen that. Do you want to send that to us? You can go to our website, as you can see, at theshrewddudes.com, and just send Danny an email, and we'd love to see that. Peach Pie Lord, experimental. I can actually bring it up right away.
Yeah, go for it. Maybe look it up. We'll explain.
Yeah, you look it up. So, phase 3 trials for Pfizer are still ongoing.
Are you looking it up?
Yep.
Okay, so let me explain really quick what that means. Okay, so when they say experimental, we have to a couple facts that you need to know. One, the Pfizer shot was actually approved because it was an emergency declaration that allowed them to be approved, even though they haven't gone through all the trials. Okay, there's a certain amount of trials that have to happen before any kind of medication, any kind of drug can be accepted and fully cleared to be sold. So they were accepted under emergency authorization.
Got it.
2, Pfizer themselves has declared that this vaccine is still in phase 3 trials until 2023.
Until right? March 31st, 2023. So it's still in phase 3 trials for another month for another 2.5 months.
Yes. Now you may have heard that Pfizer has some kind of authorization for their vaccine called Comirnaty. Okay, that was the FDA approved version. The question you have to ask, and I encourage you to look into this, is whether or not the vaccine being given
is Comirnaty, or whether it's the BNT,
or if it's the base, or if it's the
BNT 162B2.
Yes, they do have an approved FDA approved one, but the real question is: are they giving out that one, or are they giving the experimental one? The reason that's important is because if you're getting the Comirnaty, then you can sue them. Yeah. Okay, no, sorry. You can sue them because now
something happens because of the Comirnaty, but I haven't known anybody that's actually looked at what they've received. They've all been still getting the BNT because that still has emergency authorization. Right. And because it has the emergency authorization, you're not liable for anything.
Yeah,
it's
so
really that was one reason why this scared us. Was the lack of liability, the lack of transparency regarding any potential issues. This was in like late 2020, prior to this being unveiled. That was one of the first things that was like, holy crap. Like, what are they expecting to happen if before anything is introduced, they are making it so that if anything serious happens, you're on your own?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was the first major red flag. And I think, like, Peach Pie Lord and Teach, even you have to admit that's a major red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's scary. Like, if I was to be taking a drug especially for, like, let's be honest, a virus that has always had an IFR approximate to the flu, and now with Omicron and other new variants, it has an IFR lower than the flu. Why would you take something in which they won't reveal a lot of important vital information for a virus that doesn't pose you any serious risk as long as you're under 75?
Yeah. So another thing, Hogan suggested that mRNA technology has been around for a long time. That's true. It has. There's been a long, move to get it going. Here's the difference. Vaccines take a very long time to culture and to create enough to be able to give it to a mass amount of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
mRNA can be done very quickly. The problem is that it's not so much that mRNA is not a valid, medical intervention. The problem is that because mRNA can be mass produced so quickly, that it also allows them to really rush the testing process. That's the issue. That there's a very long process. How long does it usually take for a vaccine to hit the market, Stephen? How many years of safety trials and things like that?
Oh, typically?
Typically.
Oh, like at least 4.
4, if not 7 years.
I think prior to this new shots, the fastest one to get to market was smallpox.
Mm-hmm.
And that took 5 years, I believe. 4.
It was a crazy amount of time. There's a reason for that, because you have to test for all these things. Like, the thing I'm always shocked is that people are okay with the idea that they haven't fully tested it for potential risks and for potential dangers. Because every single drug you put out there can cause enormous harms. There are multiple stories of vaccines, like traditional vaccines, that were given to people, and they cause massive, health hazards that they couldn't have seen until much later, and after enough time it had passed.
Yeah.
So you have that problem, but then on top of that, you know that you're taking a massive risk by taking something that's no long-term studies, no long-term safety, data and all that kind of stuff. And then you're also robbed of the ability to say no when the government says, we're forcing you to take this. You don't have a choice. It's altogether, that's just evil. Okay? If something's experimental, you should not be forced to take it. The fact that our government altogether forces us to take it, that's where it's evil. That's where you have to use the critical thinking lens. Because if you really stop and think, this is experimental, they still haven't done long-term trials, they haven't had animal trials, which was one of the most key things, is you need to have testing on animals in order to prevent because animals can tip you off very early for long-term dangers and hazards, and they didn't do that. They skipped the animal trials. That was a humongous red flag when I first heard it. I was like, dang, that is not okay. So we just encourage you to look into it. mRNA is not magic. It can still cause you mass amounts of harm, and you have to be even more careful with mRNA than you had with traditional vaccines. Traditional vaccines used a non-invasive form of replicating something that your body normally deals with. mRNA goes into your actual DNA and your RNA. You're doing some things that could cause more damage. So you should have more care, not less care. More precautions and more caution, not less, because you're messing with people's DNA. You're messing with the intricate versions, and you're doing something that is not a normal process of the body. You're actually hijacking your body, and the side effects and the problems can be massive. So yeah, you should really, really be careful. And the fact that we're being so careless and so flippant about the dangers of these things, there's almost like a religious trust in medicine, and to believe that nobody in the medical industry can be bought or can be coerced into silence, that is just foolish. It really is. Like, I'm surprised when I meet people and I talk to people and they're like, oh, no, they're doctors. They would never do anything wrong. They have our best interest in heart. I'm like, are you kidding me? You telling me that doctors can't be bought? Like they're the only human beings on earth that can't be bought? Like that is a nonsensical, standard. It really is. Anyway, Steven?
Yep.
You got anything else?
No, I think that's about it. So yeah, like if you have sources for us, if you want to continue this conversation, heck, if you want to have like an on-air debate, let's do it. We don't care. Let's do it.
By the way, Leroy, everything was COVID when they were counting COVID.
Yes,
that's everything with COVID.
The government of Colorado confirmed that. They totally they looked into it, and I think they said it was at least 25% over reporting.
Yeah,
but I would say it's much more likely to be probably 80%, because when we look at the stats from various states and provinces around the world, like in Alberta, we had 90% of COVID-19 deaths, not only above 80, but 90% of them had 3+ serious comorbidities. And if you look at the data, I believe it was from a doctoral student in Kansas. This was a long time ago.
Look it up. It's a while ago.
But it showed a drop in deaths from cancer and heart attacks and other diseases by approximately the same amount that COVID rose by.
They basically swapped the deaths from other diseases and put them in the category of COVID. My favorite one was here in Alberta. There was a scandal because the health, the doctor in charge of everything basically said like, oh yeah, this kid died because of COVID. And then his sister's like, no, this kid died because he had stage 4 cancer. He was literally dying because of cancer. And you're saying that because he had a positive COVID test, that's what killed him. And then they had to backpedal it. They'd be like, oh, well, I guess this one case wasn't COVID. It's like, you're a hack. You're such a hack.
And like, of course, like if, I remember I sourced it back in 2020, the CDC back in 2020 listed 16,000 homicides / accidental deaths and poisonings as COVID deaths.
Yeah, there was a guy who died in a car accident.
Yeah,
and it's like, before he was even taken to the hospital,
they did a COVID test on him.
They did a COVID test on him just to make sure they could put him
just to make sure.
It was such nonsense. Not to mention, well, we like, it's no longer relevant anymore. The COVID tests were a gigantic scam.
Yes,
they were a massive.
We
fraud.
have a massive. Danny we did a special back in, I think it was early 2021 on PCR tests. So yeah, if people want that, again, email us. I could send you links to, I believe the PCR test is on BitChute and Rumble and YouTube.
Yeah,
it's definitely not on YouTube. The first mask special we did was got our first channel removed.
Yeah,
because it was just too much.
Yeah, you should not talk about COVID masks.
Yes, that is too sensitive. But all right, we're nearing 2 hours. Thank you for those who participated. We encourage you, continue to communicate with us, continue to send us messages. If you want to continue to challenge us, if you want to continue to go back and forth, we're happy to do it.
Absolutely.
That being said, if you want to follow us after the stream, you can check out the show on BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble. If you have on all of that, okay, all right, whatever.
You can also go on the website, shroomdudes.com. Not only do we post a lot of like our stuff and blogs, but we also have a resources page with you can look up all of the stuff that we've sourced in the last couple of years. So feel free to go there.
So, and if you're following us on our text platforms such as Gitter, Twitter, Parler, and Facebook, then leave us a review, comment, and tell us how we're doing. And if you want to join us on the show, if you want to have a debate, if you want to have a discussion, if you want to talk about whatever, shoot the wind, then go for it. We'll figure out something. But for otherwise, we will see you on Tuesday for our regularly scheduled Tuesday Newsday. Until then, Danny, sign us out.
Hi, we're the Truth Dudes, and like always, we like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd?
All right.
Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you next week.
Yep. We'll see you on Tuesday. And as always, God bless.